Hey, welcome back, y'all. Jason Michelle here, Echo Nesters. As you see, we got Bad Betty with us today, and Michelle and I are actually pretty excited. You know how we love our Baja LP6s, and we've been waiting to install our Baja Squadron sports lights, which are actually a driving combo light. And in this case, we've been wanting to put these either on the A-pillar or on the hood. And so as I was doing some research, a friend of mine told me about a company called Transit Off-Road. So I gave him a call and I ordered a set of brackets. And what's really, really awesome about these brackets, and I'm going to demonstrate the installation, is they're actually going to attach directly to the two hood mounting bolts. And of course, this is just to demonstrate its location. And as Michelle pans around here, you'll see how the finished look is going to be here, and then you'll put your light. But we're going to get more into that. And again, the thing that I really like about these, they're going to be a quick and easy installation. And here's a couple of things that you're going to need. You're going to need a pencil, and I'll explain why here in just a moment. You'll need either a 13mm open-end / box-in wrench, and if you happen to have a ratchet and a 13mm socket, that would be great, and it'd probably speed things up just a bit. When you do get your kit, what's really nice is they are labeled driver and passenger side. Even if you lose the tags, mix them up, it's pretty easy to get that part figured out. And then these little pieces that you see here, these aluminum billets, they're actually what are going to countersink and hold the screws, or I should say the bolt, pardon me, that mounts the lights. So today's video is going to be really about installing the bracket. So you might notice that I also have some blue tape here. And I'm using just a regular rubber gym pad just so I can keep my items organized. And you'll notice that I have another one over here, and I've cut it in half. The reason that I'm using these, and you could use a blanket or whatever you're comfortable with, it could even be one of those pool noodles, is in the event that I loosen these, and this was the move or slip, and it started to come down, I'm going to actually be able to break its fall, so to speak, and brace it with this. You might find something that you like better, but I would recommend getting something in between there. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with just any old pencil, and or if you happen to have a Sharpie, which will leave a permanent mark, you could do that. So right now, this is the mounting. This is part of the hinge assembly, I should say. Then you have your hood. And the reason that we want to trace this and just scribe around it is when we go to loosen this bracket and remove these bolts, this is going to want to kind of move. But if we have a reference point to exactly where it was prior, the nice thing is a pencil's not going to damage your vehicle or mar it, then we're going to know exactly where to go back. So once I've done that on the driver's side or passenger side, it's totally your choice. I'm going to go ahead and confirm, first of all, that I'm prepared and I have the one for the driver's side, which I do, and I know that because of the way that it's going to mount. My arm swims up this way. The thing that I would probably do, you might be more careful than me, I don't have those surgeon hands, as they say, is I would get me some blue tape, and I would just run just a little quick line here of blue tape, and all this is really going to do along this hood line is protect your paint, because let's say that I'm bringing this around and I happen to come in contact with this, I might scratch or damage my hood. And again, it's going to be pretty straightforward on how we're going to do this. This is again just more for my own keeping my nerves, as they say, calm, and probably Michelle's because she doesn't want Bad Betty scratched. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by loosening these. I'm not going to totally remove them right now. I'm just going to break where they're at here. And you can see that the hood has already got a little bit of movement. So that's why it was important that we notate with the pencil where these go. And as you notice, and I'm going to go ahead and let it deliberately happen, the hood's going to naturally want to kind of pivot down. And that's okay. We have our pad, if you will. And so I'm going to continue to loosen these. And I think it's important as you're doing this, and again, you'll want to follow your own safety procedure, things that make you feel comfortable, whether it's gloves, etc. I'm just going to keep my hand locked onto the hood. By the way, the hood is really super light, I can tell. I don't know what it weighs, but it's not taking very much. So I'm going to remove this the rest of the way. And as you can see, we've now exposed the threads of the bolt that is part of the hood. We'll get the other one off here. And get a little looser. And as you can see, that's pretty straightforward. Now I'm going to take my bracket. I'm going to slide it around this way so that I'm lining the hood bolts up with my bracket. It's going to go right into place. It's secure. And then what I'm going to do is, you see how the hood moves. We've already talked about that. I'm going to go back to my scribed line. I'm going to take one of my bolts, or I should say my nuts, sorry, and thread it onto my bolt. And I'm going to grab the other nut, thread it onto the bolt. And right now, I'm hand tightening these. And I'm going to go ahead and secure them here in a moment. So remember, it's going to shift, which is fine. So I'm going to go back. Now, the thing to note is it can shift, let's call it left or right and up and down, vertical and horizontal. So I'm going to make sure I go back not only to my line that I scribed on this side, but all my lines on this side. Get my ratchet ready. And now that I feel that I've lined everything back up with its original location, I'm going to begin to snug these. I'm not going to tighten one more than the other to start with. It's kind of like as if I was tightening the lugs on a tire when I'm changing it. I'm just going to keep changing the pattern here until it feels pretty snug. There may be a torque spec on this. If I locate it and find it, I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. So what I'm going to do, just so you can see what we accomplished here before we move to the passenger side, I'm just going to carefully lower the hood just a bit, moving my rubber pad out of the way. And as you can see, that the hood mount bracket is now going to house my Baja Squadron Lights. So we're going to get to that. It's pretty clean. So let's go do the passenger side and we'll talk more from there. Be right back with y'all. So if you're at this point of the video, it's redundant of what we just did. We're just now on the passenger side. And again, I'm scribing here, just basically tracing. I'm using the word scribe, but I'm tracing this outline here so that I know exactly where to go. I've taken my rubber pad, and or if you have a blanket, again, pool noodle, whatever's more comfortable for you. A couple pieces of blue tape. I exaggerate my use on here a bit, and that's only because I kind of know how my hands are, that I'll probably start way over here with the bracket and move over. And so we'll just get another layer, again, just to keep Michelle from getting too nervous. So we've got our ratchet, 13 millimeter again. You can use box or open-end wrench. I would not use an impact driver, as tempted as I am to do that, but because that could get away from you, especially if you're going to tighten it back up. Now, one of the things that you're going to hear is a little bit of crackling sound. Don't be alarmed by that. All that is a separation between these two. There's some dirt, debris, just things that have kind of secured themselves, throughout Bad Betty's travels. And again, as you can see, why it was so important to describe this, we're at the point where this is starting to loosen itself up and can potentially become out of adjustment. It would be a little unlikely, but to prevent that, we used the pencil and we scribed. And I'm trying to pick up the pace for y'all here. And we'll get these off. We'll set them aside so we don't lose them. And it's best you set them where you're comfortable setting them and where you think they will most likely be found. So now I'm going to take the passenger side. And again, they are labeled in the package, but in the event that you mix them up, you'll get right back to it. I slide it around, line up the holes with the bolts, just until I feel like it's just right where it needs to be. And it's looking good. And there we go. I feel pretty happy with that. Now, before I make the adjustment in this case, I'm just going to get these started. I found from doing the other side that this is probably maybe the recommendation. I shouldn't say maybe, it is the recommendation that I would make. Now, again, we have vertical and horizontal movement on the hood. So it's important that I take this bracket and I realign it with where my marking and scribes are. So I'm just going to start with hand tightening as best I can. And I'll continue to move that back into the traced line. And then what we'll do, we'll get this set up. I'm going to go ahead and reposition the bracket and the hood, locking it down, evenly tightening the two so So one is not more than the other as we're proceeding. It's holding itself. It feels pretty snug to me. I'm sure there is a torque specification. Again, when I do locate that, I'll let you know. I'm going to remove my tape, just some blue painter's tape. And you know what? We'll skip that for now because I think you guys might be as excited as I am to take a look at this. So let's move our tools. We'll get to these pieces in just a moment. Get our little setup out of the way. Bad Betty sticker right there with the EKKO nesters, our squadrons. And let's check our fitment. Again, these are gym mats. You can pick them up just about anywhere. I happen to pick these up at Home Depot because they're very reasonably priced for a pack. Lower our hood arm. What I'm going to do is I'm lowering this. I'm just going to be careful to check for any interference. I don't believe there is any. So things are looking good. And I'll remove the rest of my tape here. And let's close the hood completely. And let's double check we didn't leave any tools. Everything looks good. All right, here she goes. It's going to be loud. Okay. It looks like we're well lined up here. Nothing looks out of adjustment. These lines look good as well. So basically, as I had mentioned, you might be using a different brand of lights. We're going to be using our Baja Squadrons. These are going to mount here. And I think what's going to be really nice about this is when you have the two pieces that come with this, the little billet area, and I'm going to have Michelle pause the camera while I go grab the rest of the hardware. So one of the things I wanted to share with y'all is what the final, let's say, installation looks like, and that before you tighten it down, you're going to be able to position these in such a way that best works for you, whether you're looking for more of a ditch light, something that's more of directional. But I'm going to go ahead and swing this around to the back here because I want to explain something. When you get your product, your hood mount bracket, the things that it's not going to come with, and of course it shouldn't, this is going to be part of your lighting suppliers who's going to provide this, is you're not going to get a bracket similar to this. You obviously won't get the housing, the light, and the rest of the hardware. However, what you are going to receive is this machined billet here that goes at the top. And what it's designed to do is, in most cases, with the Baja Squadron light bracket, as well as some of the KC light brackets, it's designed so that this will sit right inside there, just nice and set right in between that groove. And then as you draw this up and the nut up, that allows you to make contact. And I'm going to move my hands here so y'all can see, so that you can put your washer and your nut on. Now, I'm going to go ahead and leave this one off for a moment. And I'm going to take you all over to the passenger side because I think it's important to demonstrate something really quick. So now I'm at the passenger side, and I thought I'd bring something to your attention. Is when Transit Off-Road designed these billets that are going to help you mount your choice of lighting, one of the things that they did is they machined the center here to accommodate either the Baja Squadron light bracket and or one of the KC brackets. It's probably more than likely possible that many of the other brackets from other manufacturers are going to fit inside there well. But in the event that they don't, you may have to grind or machine this bracket down. Again, this is not something that you're going to get from Transit Off-Road. It's going to come from your lighting supplier. But another thing that I wanted to point out is, depending who's supplying the hardware with your lights, the length of these bolts here that basically mount your lights, let's assume that just like the other side, that this was all together and it was mounted just like we did on the driver's side, you might come into a situation, and I just wanted to set this up sort of for failure so you wouldn't be alarmed. You might come to a situation where you're going to put the bolt through and you're going to realize that you can't get it in there. That is not the bracket. That is actually just part of whoever supplied the hardware. She may have to get a shorter one of these bolts. But let's assume that you didn't want to do that. How could we, right now, without going to the hardware store, fix that issue? I'm going to grab my ratchet and I'm going to show you what you could do. Okay, so let's assume that we got everything lined up and we were finished, and we realized that the manufacturer who supplied us with our lights, the lights that we purchased, that bolt was just a little too long. Again, just for demonstration there, and I had to kind of start over. Well, the nice thing is you don't necessarily have to start over per se. What you can do is, just like we did before, loosen this up as if you're going to remove the bracket. And again, we're going to put a little bit of padding just in here, just as a safety. The likelihood that this is going to fall or move is slim, but it could happen. When we say something's not going to happen, oftentimes it can. So I'm going to loosen these up. And just like before, I'm going to remove the bolts, being careful to set them where I'm not going to lose them or forget them. And as I'm doing this, we're going to go ahead and adjust the bracket that we previously installed back off. And it's okay if the hood moves. Nothing's going to get hard. Like I said, it's very, very lightweight. And just for safety, we're just going to put these on. And then what we can do is we can do one or two things. We can take our bracket and we can put our billet holder, this aluminum piece, right back onto here. We can hold it up temporarily so it doesn't fall back through, and we can reverse the sequence and line this back up. That's option one. Now you still might run into some interference, and if I ran into some interference, what I could do is remove the billet, the screw, the nut, remove the two mounting nuts from my hood, take my bracket, reinstall it, and just before I line all the hinges up, I'm just going to get this secured so nothing falls. And then what it'll allow me to do, and I'm going to have Michelle bring the camera around this way, is now I have some play in the bracket here, okay? Given that I have that play, and now I can go ahead and get that in there and finish the job. So if you run into that, that's something that you can do. It's pretty straightforward, and it'll solve some of your issues. So again, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to wrap this up with Bad Betty. If you have any questions, just hit us up. We always appreciate you liking, subscribing, following along with us, and leaving some comments. If there's something about the installation that I didn't cover and you do have that question, feel free to ask. I'm going to leave a link to where you can pick up these brackets, and you've seen how easy they are to install. You can see the craftsmanship, the quality, and fair disclosure, we paid for these. They were not given to us. So everything about this video is 100% transparent and real, and we were not paid or, if you will, in any way given any product or anything by Transit Off-Road to install these and have a conversation about them. We're just telling our story and our journey as we go. So thanks again for joining us at EKKO Nesters, and stay tuned for some more good stuff. So one of the things that I was pointing out in the video earlier is a particular way that you can install, in this case, a Baja Squadron pillar light to your new Transit Off-Road hood light bracket. However, if you go to the hardware store and you pick up a little bit larger nut that fits into the billet, remember the billet is supplied with the bracket, and in theory, not in theory, but in most of the cases, you're going to take this just like that, and you're going to marry the two through here. And the nice thing is, when you go to do that, if you pay attention to this hole and you keep it towards you, and if you're a little worried that you won't line it up right away, there is room for forgiveness, but you kind of start it off by hand and you begin to get it secured. And once it's secured to where it's tight by hand, you can then hold this right here, and you can take your ratchet or your open-end wrench and you can cinch this down, and then you can reconnect your pillar light. And the reason I'm demonstrating this is the manufacturer, whoever you're purchasing your pillar lights from, are going to supply hardware that's familiar with them, and in some cases the nuts are a little too small for your billet mount. So just be prepared for that. I hope that's a helpful tip. In the meantime, keep on echoing.